Hey guys, and welcome to a lesson on Kenny Burrell's G Baby Ain't I Good to You. This is kind of my take on his chord melody, mostly his work, but with a few little things that I've changed here and there just to make it slightly easier to play as a solo arrangement. Now if you're interested in learning the chord changes for this before tackling the chord melody, do check out my video on tritone substitution, where we learn these changes as part of the lesson. Okay, so the first chord of the song is a C7. He plays a C9 chord, so that's a C dominant 7 with the 9 added, and he goes for this fairly typical jazz voicing. Looks like an E minor 7 flat 5. He goes one step further and bars the little finger to grab the top note as well as the B string. That can be a tricky little move if you're not used to it, but just work on it and it'll happen. You want to be trying to bend that finger inwards a little bit. So that's a C9 with the 3rd in the bass. Here's your root, diagonal line to the 3rd. This next chord is a similar thing. It's the top 4 strings of an A flat 9, just rootless. And then he goes to a G7 where he uses this voicing again that we had for the C9, but a semitone higher. If we're thinking G7, what you now have is a flat 7, a 3rd, a sharpened 5th and a flat 9. Really cool sounding, especially when you hear it resolve to the next chord, the C9. As a side note, notice how this also looks a lot like a minor 7 flat 5 chord. The next phrase is just a 3-note pentatonic run before going to an F7 with a flat 9 added to it. And then we go down to 4th fret of the B string. We put that on the top of this chord shape. Great chord this. In some ways it looks like an A flat major triad with B flat in the bass. But in this context, we're using it as a B flat dominant 7 with a 9 and a sus 4 before resolving to the actual 1 chord, the E flat major 6th. So that would be all together. And then we have a turnaround chord. We want to get back to C7 and go around the A section again. So we play the 5 of that, which would be a G7. And we go for this voicing, G7 with a sharpened 5th. And then he does this little Django-y thing to the flat 9 and back before C9 again, but instead of this voicing, he plays a voicing that I relate to that shape. I often think of this as the Freddie King voicing from Hideaway. It's a great voicing, built off the flat 7. So C7, here's your flat 7, we're adding a 9, here's your major 3rd, and here's your root, C9. I would try and get these two shapes associated together in your muscle memory. Notice how these two fingers don't move at all. All we're really doing is taking the 3rd up an octave and adding the root on top. Two really nice ways to play a C dominant chord. Now we play 2 notes, 8 then 9 on the B string, before connecting to an A flat 9 again, where the top note this time has to be that B string to keep the melody intact. So that would be. And then again we play a simple little 3-note C minor blues scale thing, and then G7. Then G7 with a sharp 5, and then a C9. I think that's a really great movement. I'd recommend trying to get that really confidently under the fingers. It's a great thing that you can use in so many places, because really it's a 5-1 motion. You've got the G7, G7 again, but with the flat 7 in the bass, sharpened 5th in the middle, resolving beautifully to the 3rd of your C9. As always, you can go to the links in the description to get hold of the lesson materials for this. That will include my transcription, note for note, in Guitar Pro and PDF formats. And also there'll be a worksheet with all of these really important dominant chord voicings we've been talking about today. You can sign up to my Patreon for a small monthly fee if you want to get access to all of my lesson materials, and this includes backing tracks and playthroughs, as well as the transcriptions. If that's not your thing, you can do a one-off purchase through the Gumroad store to get hold of this lesson in particular. Either way, I really do appreciate your support, and it helps me to continue growing this channel. And then again, we're back to that 3-note pentatonic thing. Before the F7 with the flat 9 again, the B flat 9 with the sus4, resolving to the 1, the E flat 6. And yet again we go G7 sharp 5 for our turnaround. Now we're back to the C9 again, same as before. G7, C9. This time it's a little different. We're going to go F7 flat 9, and then I've chosen to go like this. 2 notes here, 6 on the B, 8 on the G, before going to a B flat 9 with that same voicing we used 2 frets higher for the C9. And then back to the E flat 6. Okay, so that would be. And then we play this chord. Nice big sounding chord. That's the 5 of where we're about to go next. So for the B section, we're going to move to our 4 chord, A flat. And this here is an E flat 7 with a sharpened 9th, the Hendrix chord, if you will. I've put the 5th in the bass and the root. I think that really thickens things up. A lot of these blues and jazz players did that. And then we're on the B section. So we go to the A flat, where we're really thinking A flat major, triad, and then hooking the thumb over for the bass note, adding the little finger to grab the 6th. Again, kind of Hendrixy. Think about Wind Cries Mary. This time we're on the A flat. We then go to this A diminished 7th, where we have this really nice sharpened 5th in the melody. And then we play this line. The goal here is to get to the E flat 7 again. This time we're thinking E flat 9, the top 4 strings. So you've got. In a lot of ways, this melody is just E flat major before turning it dominant, making it the 5 of the 4 again. So we can go back to the A flat. This is all played in double time feel, by the way. Now we do go back to A flat, but we play this A flat major 7th, rooted off the D string, and we slide into it from a semitone below. Interesting little melody there, kind of bluesy, before hitting that A diminished 7th again. And then we do this chromatic climb up the B string, 6, 7, 8, only we get the 8 as the top note of a G13 voicing. This would be flat 7, 3rd, 13, root. And then we're thinking G9 with that semitone above passing chord. Really cool. So at the end there you've got a couple of G7s essentially in a row. G7 with a 13, then G7 with a 9. And then we go back to the initial A section to begin with. We play this C9 with the little finger barring the top 2 strings again. And then the A flat 9, C9 from above, pentatonic into the F7 flat 9, B flat 9, and then E flat major 6th. One thing to mention here is sometimes I like to add the 5th in the bass with the root on this one as well, and I would do that with the thumb. Those big fat chords with all the stuff going on in the bass, they're really good to get used to grabbing if you want to sound really authentic as a solo guitarist playing kind of jazz, blues, bebop stuff. F7 flat 9, B flat 9, E flat 6. Now we're going to get into the ending portion here. I want to work my way round back to the F7, so I'm thinking, what's the 5 of F7? C7. So I'm going with a C7 flat 9. Then we're back round to the pentatonic. F7 flat 9, B flat 9, E flat 6. This time we're going to go C7 sharp 9, but instead of playing it here, I've put it up on the low E string, Kenny Burrell style. And then again we're back to that pentatonic, F7 flat 9, B flat 9, and then E flat 6 to finish. One of my students came up with a really nice variation for that last phrase, playing a single note blues run, this kind of thing. In context, that would sound something like this. Okay, so that's the arrangement done. Now for homework on this, you really want to work on those voicings, get used to these voicings on the middle 4 strings. So let's say we're thinking C7, 3-note voicing. Visualize your major third and build this, again, what looks like an E minor 7 flat 5, but is actually a C9. So that would be a nice option. So you want to kind of start to associate these things together. Sit there and do plenty of muscle memory workouts. Literally just back and forth. C7, C9, that kind of thing. You could also include that Freddie King voicing. And then you also have those voicings that we used to represent chords that would normally be rooted on the A string, like a G7 for example. The process for that really would be to start out with a G major, take that root down a whole tone to give you the flat 7. Now that's your third inversion G7 chord. Now from there you can do all sorts of stuff, like you can take that 5th and sharpen it. You could flatten the 9 on top as well. You could sharpen the 9. You could add a 13 in the middle. 13 in the middle with 9 on top. 13 in the middle with a flattened 9th, Jim Hall style. Some really cool things to explore in there. I'll include them on a sheet along with the transcription. Okay guys, there we go. Kenny Burrell, G Baby Ain't I Good to You. Sorted. Do let me know down in the comments if you've enjoyed this lesson or if you have any questions. And do make sure to like and subscribe too. Okay, thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next week. Take care.